I remember the exact moment it clicked for me. I was sitting at my kitchen table, payday had just hit, and I had this plan, a real plan. I was going to save $200 from this paycheck. Just $200, that's it. And I was genuinely excited about it, like I'd finally figured something out about myself. By Thursday, the $200 was gone. Not on anything dramatic, not a vacation or a new TV, just life. A dinner here, an Uber there. I deserved this moment at Target that somehow cost $67. And I sat there staring at my account thinking, what is wrong with me? Why does this keep happening? If you've ever felt that, I want you to stay with me for a second, because this isn't actually a story about willpower or discipline. It's about something much stranger and much more interesting than that. Here's what nobody tells you. Saving your first $1,000 is genuinely psychologically harder than saving your next $10,000. Not a little harder, dramatically harder, and it has almost nothing to do with the math. And here's the part that surprised me when I actually looked into it. Over 56% of Americans can't cover a $1,000 emergency without borrowing money or selling something. More than half the country. These aren't reckless people. These aren't people who don't know they should be saving. They're people whose brains are working against them in a very specific, very predictable way. And once I understood the mechanism, it genuinely changed how I related to money. So let me show you what's actually happening. Your brain, at its core, is not a financial planning tool. It's a survival machine that got really good at one thing over hundreds of thousands of years, keeping you alive right now. Not next month, not in retirement, right now. And when you're wired for immediate survival, saving money, physically giving up real resources today for hypothetical safety in the future, feels genuinely threatening, not uncomfortable, threatening. Behavioral economists call it hyperbolic discounting, which is a fancy way of saying your brain values things that are immediate way more than things that are future, like dramatically more. A dollar today feels worth much more than a dollar next year, even if you logically know it's the same dollar. And here's where it gets wild. Researchers have found that when people think about their future selves, the part of their brain that activates is the same part that activates when they think about a stranger, not themselves, a stranger. So when you're asked to sacrifice for your future self, you're literally being asked to sacrifice for someone your brain doesn't even recognize as you, which honestly explains so much. Think about someone like Mike Tyson, made over $400 million in his career. By 2003, he was bankrupt. Or MC Hammer, $33 million, gone in a few years. And the easy narrative is that they were irresponsible, or flashy, or bad with numbers. But there are dozens of athletes and entertainers with the same story. What they all had in common wasn't stupidity. It was that nobody had ever helped them build a psychological relationship with money before the money arrived. The mechanics of wealth, the habits, the identity, the restraint, those have to be built before the money comes. And the first $1,000 is where that foundation either gets built or doesn't. Because here's what happens when you're trying to save that first $1,000. Every single dollar you set aside represents a real sacrifice. You can feel its absence. You walk past a restaurant you love and you think about that $60 sitting in your savings account. You feel that $60 as a specific loss, a dinner you didn't have, a night you gave up. The sacrifice is immediate and tangible. The benefit is abstract and distant. But once you have $10,000 saved, the math is exactly the same, but the psychology is completely different. You don't feel individual dollars anymore. The whole thing has momentum. You're not resisting temptation from a place of scarcity. You're adding to something that already exists. You're feeding a snowball, not pushing a boulder uphill. There's actually a term for the first part of that struggle. It's related to what psychologists call the threshold effect. Below a certain threshold of savings, every financial decision feels like a crisis because you have no buffer. And when you're in crisis mode, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that does long-term planning, literally has less capacity. Stress shrinks your cognitive bandwidth. A 2013 study from Princeton and Harvard found that financial scarcity consumes so much mental bandwidth that it effectively reduced cognitive function by the equivalent of losing 13 IQ points. 13 points. That's not a small thing. That means the people who need the most clear-headed financial thinking are operating with the least of it, specifically because of the financial stress they're already under. This is where it starts to feel a little bit cruel, honestly. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, but surely once you understand this, it gets easier, right? And yes, it does. But there's one more layer here that I think is the most important one, and it's the one most financial advice completely ignores. It's not just that saving is hard, it's that spending has been engineered to feel effortless. Think about how Amazon designed one-click purchasing, or how casinos remove clocks and windows so you lose track of time, or how every streaming service defaults to autoplay. These aren't accidents. They're precision-built systems designed by some of the smartest engineers in the world specifically to bypass the part of your brain that pumps the brakes. And we're using our willpower, our limited, exhaustible, poverty-taxed willpower to resist them. That's not a fair fight. That's never been a fair fight. There's a reason Dave Ramsey swears by cash envelopes. When you physically hand over paper money, your brain processes it as a real loss. Multiple studies have shown that people spend 15 to 20% more when paying by card versus cash because the pain of paying is reduced. The digital transaction feels abstract, the physical bill feels real, and that friction, that tiny moment of resistance, is sometimes the only thing standing between you and the decision you'll regret. So, what can you actually do with all of this? Here's what I've learned, and I want to say this as gently as possible. The goal isn't to become someone who doesn't want things. The goal is to build a system that works with your brain instead of demanding your brain work against itself. Automate the saving so the decision is never made in a moment of weakness. Start with an amount so small it feels almost embarrassing. Not $200, but $20. Because the point isn't the amount, it's the identity shift. You're becoming someone who saves. That matters more than the number. And give the first $1,000 a name, not an emergency fund. Call it something real, something that means something to you. Because your brain responds to stories, not spreadsheets. And when it feels hard, because it will feel hard, remember that 56% of Americans are right there with you. Not because they're failing, but because the system was never designed to make this easy. Understanding that doesn't solve it, but it does mean you can stop spending energy on shame and start spending it on solutions. I'm still building my own relationship with money, honestly. Some months are better than others. But knowing why the first 1,000 is the hardest one, knowing it's not a character flaw, it's a cognitive pattern, that changed something for me. It changed the way I talk to myself when I slip up. It changed the way I set up my accounts. And slowly, it's changing the pattern itself. I'm curious whether you recognize any of this in yourself, because most of us are walking around thinking we have a discipline problem, when really we have a design problem, and design problems have solutions.